An introvert hangover is not a character flaw, laziness, or a mysterious curse from the god of small talk. It is a predictable biological and psychological response to prolonged stimulation, emotional labor, and social processing that exceed your energetic budget. The symptoms can look dramatic: mental fog, body heaviness, irritability, a burning need for silence, and a near physical aversion to more conversation. For many people, it shows up the morning after a long day of meetings, a wedding weekend, or even a short but intense gathering where attention, noise, and decision-making came rapid fire. To decode this experience, begin with a clean distinction between introversion, shyness, and social anxiety, because they are not synonyms, and they do not produce the same hangover for the same reasons. Introversion is primarily about how you refuel. Stimulating environments drain you, while solitude restores you, regardless of social skill. Shyness and social anxiety are about fear and evaluation. Those can intensify the fatigue, but plenty of confident, socially skilled introverts still crash hard after extended interaction because arousal and sensory load, not fear, did the draining. Classic arousal theory helps frame why the same party that lights one person's brain feels like a blender for another. Introverts tend to operate with a higher baseline of cortical arousal, which means loud environments, constant novelty, and rapid interaction push them past the sweet spot of alertness into overdrive more quickly. Extroverts, with a lower baseline, often need more stimulation to hit their peak and can swim in that current longer before feeling flooded. Neither is better. Each simply requires a distinct strategy for energy management. Add neurochemistry to the picture, and the hangover makes even more sense. Social novelty, bright rooms, layered conversations, and fast decisions are dopamine-rich situations. They pull you outward, upward, and faster than your internal pace, like wind catching a kite. Introverts generally prefer acetylcholine-dominant states, deep focus, one-to-one connection, quiet flow, so long runs in dopamine-heavy environments can feel like borrowing from tomorrow's calm. The bill arrives later as mental static, depleted focus, and a sharp craving for zero input. The nervous system pays, too, through the stress axis. Even enjoyable events can activate a background trickle of adrenaline and cortisol. Navigating crowds, tracking multiple faces, reading the room, switching topics quickly, and keeping an eye on exits all create load. When the sympathetic nervous system does too much of the driving, the parasympathetic rest and digest system has to slam on the brakes later, hence the crash, the nap you cannot fight, and the need to dissolve into a dark, silent room. There is also the computation cost of social cognition that quietly taxes introverts during group time. Tracking several conversational threads, remembering what was said, mentally simulating how remarks land, and adjusting your tone on the fly is heavy mental lifting. If you tend to be conscientious and empathic, you may do more of this behind-the-scenes processing than you realize, which accelerates the burn of your limited attentional fuel. If you are also high in sensory processing sensitivity, the inputs that others filter out, air conditioner hum, overlapping voices, perfume, lighting flicker, chair squeaks, clashing colors, register in vivid detail. Each signal alone is manageable. The stack becomes a skyscraper. That is why just relax advice rarely helps. The wiring notices what it notices, and the system needs structured relief rather than denial of the load. Another invisible drain is masking, the subtle self-management many introverts do to appear more animated, more on, or more continuously available than they feel. Performing extra smiles, faster responses, and amplified enthusiasm might be strategic or socially kind in the moment, yet it charges interest. After hours of masking, the body requests a refund in the form of shutdown, silence, and distance. There is a relational component as well, emotional labor. Holding space for someone's story, navigating conflict, smoothing awkwardness, or translating your internal pace into someone else's tempo takes effort. Even in love and friendship, that expenditure accumulates. The hangover is the ledger balance that arrives when the party ends, showing the sum of countless microdebts. Because the causes are multidimensional, recovery must be layered rather than a single trick. Think in phases: decompress, detox, integrate, and recalibrate. Decompress addresses raw stimulation and nervous system activation. Detox clears the mental clutter and sensory residue. Integrate processes the meaning of interactions. Recalibrate reestablishes your baseline and prepares you for the next social stretch with intention rather than dread. Start with decompression, which begins with deliberate sensory subtraction. Dim the lights, reduce sound, and recline or lie down. Deny the brain anything extra to handle. 15 to 30 minutes of pure quiet, no music with lyrics, no podcasts, no notifications, gives your nervous system permission to reassert parasympathetic control. The goal is not entertainment, but white space. Breath is your remote control here, and a simple pattern tames the sympathetic surge without drama. Use a double inhale through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth. Repeat for a few minutes until the chest loosens and the shoulders drop. Then shift to a steady cadence where the exhale is longer than the inhale, 4 seconds in, 6 to 8 out, which signals safety to the body and nudges down heart rate and blood pressure. Hydration and blood sugar are often the least glamorous and most effective hangover levers. Hours of talking, standing, and moving, plus caffeine and perhaps alcohol, conspire to leave you dry and depleted. Water, plus electrolytes, can reduce headache and fog. Pair a simple, balanced snack, protein, fiber, and a slow carb, to stabilize energy, because the brain's insistence on silence sometimes masks a glucose slump that magnifies irritability. Temperature and texture help the body downshift faster than thoughts can. A warm shower or bath invites relaxation and closes the door on external noise. A soft blanket, weighted or not, provides proprioceptive comfort that reassures the nervous system. If you prefer movement, a slow walk outside without earbuds gives your eyes horizon distance, which naturally calms the visual system and cleanses mental static. Digital quiet matters more than it seems because notifications are social echoes that keep your sympathetic system buzzing. Silence your phone, park it across the room, and step away from inboxes for a set window. Remember that your brain does not distinguish much between 10 people in a room and 10 people in your pocket. Both create social load and both deserve an intermission. Detox begins once the body settles enough to think in complete sentences again, and it is largely about clearing cognitive residue. A gentle brain dump, names, moments, concerns, highlights, gets swirling items onto paper where they can stop circulating. The simple act of naming what took energy and what gave energy helps your future self design smarter plans without shaming your present self for needing rest. Integration is where meaning returns and you extract value rather than simply surviving the crash. Identify one connection worth nurturing, one boundary worth strengthening, and one small thing you will do differently next time. Frame the event as data, not drama. When socializing aligns with your values, even if it costs energy, the recovery ends with a subtle sense of satisfaction rather than regret. Recalibration is about restoring your personal baseline and protecting it going forward. Sleep is the cornerstone, and an early night with consistent timing repairs more than willpower ever will. Lights down, screens off, room cool, and wake time steady ensure your circadian rhythm does the heavy lifting for you. If sleep must be delayed, even a controlled 20-minute nap earlier in the day beats a late afternoon crash that sabotages bedtime. As you build prevention into your calendar, treat your energy like a budget with line items rather than a vague hope to see how it goes. Estimate the cost of events realistically and add buffer before and after high-load commitments like conferences, weddings, or back-to-back meetings. The buffer is not a luxury. It is the cost of doing business with your temperament, and paying it up front spares you overdraft fees later. Pre-recovery is a powerful habit. Plan a quiet hour before big social windows to enter them with a full tank rather than sprinting in on fumes. Protect hydration, select food that will not spike and crash your energy, and decide on a maximum time on site so you are not negotiating with yourself while exhausted. Clarity ahead of time feels like kindness when the room gets loud. During events, use micro-recoveries to stay within range. Step outside between conversations to reset your ears and eyes. Stand near windows or quieter corners. Anchor with one-to-one dialogue rather than orbiting group chaos. Pretend your phone has poor reception and reply later, smile, nod, and hold your line. Script your exits in advance to remove guilt and indecision when the drain becomes obvious. Phrases like, "I promised myself an early night," "I'm stepping out to recharge," or "I'm at capacity and heading out" are honest, short, and kind. The more you practice them, the less you over-explain and the more your circle learns your rhythms. Alcohol deserves its own note because it masks fatigue on the front end and intensifies it on the back end. If you drink, cap the count, alternate with water, and eat consistently. Consider a no-alcohol default for professional or high-stakes events where you want your recovery fast and clean. You will likely notice the hangover shrinks by half when alcohol is not stacking on top of stimulation. Caffeine is a clever ally and a sly saboteur. Time it early and within your normal range. Taking late-day caffeine to push through is like borrowing tomorrow's focus at steep interest. You will pay with restless sleep and a heavier crash that blurs into the next morning. Set a caffeine curfew that respects your bedtime and honor it like a boundary with yourself. Movement the day after is medicine if it is gentle and rhythmic. A walk, light cardio, or mobility session coaxes circulation and mood without demanding social performance. Headphones with instrumental music can be fine if the world feels too loud. Skip maximal lifts or punishing workouts when the goal is nervous system recovery rather than personal records. Relationships thrive when you can name your needs without making them an indictment of others. Tell your partner or friends that recovery is part of your social plan, not a rejection of them. Invite them into the strategy so they can support it rather than trip it. The people who value you will adjust. The ones who do not may have been leaning on your people-pleasing more than your person. At work, design communication to favor depth over noise. Batch meetings, protect focus blocks, choose asynchronous updates when possible, and renegotiate standing calls that hemorrhage energy with little return. A camera-optional culture for non-essential video calls, concise agendas, and clear stop times all reduce the likelihood of a midweek hangover that kneecaps productivity. Travel amplifies everything, so double your buffers around flights, conferences, and family visits. Book lodgings that guarantee quiet, carry earplugs and a sleep mask, and plan solo meals when you need to reclaim your baseline. Put your recovery windows on the calendar the same way you schedule sessions. If it is not visible, it gets sacrificed. Perfectionism makes hangovers worse because it tempts you to overperform socially and then punish yourself for the inevitable crash. Replace the inner narrative of failure with a technical report on load and capacity. This turns shame into systems thinking. You did not fail at being social. You simply ran a high-intensity day on limited bandwidth, and now you are refueling. Boundaries are easier to enforce when they are simple, repeatable, and tied to time rather than worth. I'm leaving by 10. I do one event per weekend, and I need a quiet morning after back-to-backs are clear expectations that the body can rely on. Consistency builds trust with yourself, and that trust dramatically lowers pre-event anxiety that burns energy before you even arrive. If you struggle with saying no in the moment, automate the no earlier. Reply to invitations with realistic default limits and create templates that you can send without agonizing over tone. Protect weekends like sacred ground. Guard one entire day each month for deep recovery and creative solitude, and honor it the way others honor a holiday. When the hangover feels heavy, resist doom narratives that your temperament is a handicap in a social world. Introverted energy is not fragile. It is precious and precise, designed to go deep, notice nuance, build ideas, and cultivate intimacy rather than noise. The more you design your week for your strengths, the more generous and present you become when you do choose to be with people. Over time, you will learn your red flags that warn a crash is coming. For some, it is a subtle sound sensitivity that turns normal volume into sandpaper. For others, names slip and eyes glaze while you keep nodding. Treat these as dashboard lights, not moral tests. Step out, reset, and return if you want, or leave if you are done. A simple 48-hour rule helps you smooth the cycle. The day before a demanding social window, protect extra sleep, hydration, and quiet. The day after, lighten obligations and favor solo tasks. This sandwiching effect prevents the extreme highs and lows that make social life feel like a roller coaster you did not buy tickets for. Stability is the secret superpower of sustainable socializing. If you are also a creator, deep thinker, or builder, remember that solitude is not the absence of life. It is where your best life takes form. Your ideas mature in quiet like photographs developing in a darkroom. Too much exposure too soon bleaches them. Plan your collaborations and showcases around generous, protected creation time so you show up with something solid rather than scattered. Community does not have to be loud to be real, and your people do not need constant access to feel close. Seek groups that value depth, small gatherings, shared projects, and unforced silence. Choose environments where leaving early is normal rather than dramatic. Compatibility reduces the hangover at the root by matching social cost to social return. If the crash persists for days, if basic tasks remain heavy, or if joy keeps shrinking, widen the lens. Chronic stress, overwork, untreated anxiety, or medical issues can mimic or amplify the introvert hangover. It is wise to consult a qualified professional when patterns feel stuck. Recovery should restore clarity within a reasonable window. If it does not, support is a strength, not a confession of weakness. Build a personal hangover kit so you do not reinvent recovery every time. Earplugs, sleep mask, electrolyte packets, a favorite tea, a soft hoodie, a calming playlist without lyrics, a small notebook, and a few boundary scripts printed on a card can live in your bag or car. Ritual lowers friction. Having what you need nearby beats hunting for it when you are fried. As you refine your approach, track a few variables that actually move the needle. Note hours of sleep before and after, total event duration, crowd size, alcohol and caffeine timing, and how many micro breaks you took. Patterns will emerge that are more honest than memory. Design from the pattern rather than the feeling of the last extreme night. Make generosity realistic by respecting your limits in advance. You can be warm without being always on, generous without being endlessly available, and connected without being constantly connected. The people who benefit most from your presence deserve your best presence, and that requires strategic absence. If you ever feel guilty for leaving early, flip the frame. The quiet you take now is the quality you bring next time. A well-rested introvert is a gift, focused, attuned, and capable of real listening, while an overextended one is a shadow of that gift. Choose the version of yourself that the world actually needs. Introvert hangovers shrink when belonging replaces performance. Stand with people who do not treat your boundaries as negotiations and who respect that your no protects the same person they claim to care about. In such circles, your energy is not something to be consumed, it is something to be honored. Finally, reduce the drama and raise the design. Put buffers on the calendar, choose events intentionally, script exits lightly, and recover like an athlete who respects the cycle of exertion and restoration. Your temperament is a blueprint, not a barrier. When you build with it rather than against it, social life stops feeling like a storm to survive and starts feeling like weather you know how to navigate. When the next invitation arrives, do not dread it, engineer it. Decide the yes or no based on your week's load, set your time window, choose one person you will connect with meaningfully, plan your exit, and schedule your reset. The hangover will still knock sometimes, but now it will find a door with a lock, a room with low light, and a host who knows exactly how to return to center. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Energy is not a moral currency, it is a biological one. Spend it where it yields depth, protect it from leaky habits, and restore it with unapologetic precision. That is not selfish, that is stewardship. Use this as your compact protocol the next time you need it, and let it live on your phone or fridge. Before the event, hydrate, eat, choose a maximum duration, and block a recovery window. During the event, take silent micro breaks and keep alcohol modest. After the event, subtract stimulation, breathe, rehydrate with electrolytes, eat simply, and sleep early. Repeat this cycle consistently and watch the hangovers shrink while your best self shows up more often, more calmly, and on purpose.